Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Friday evening. It is 9 o'clock. It is time to gather in the music room and have a live stream. But first, as always, a little music, folks. And I'll just set that up properly and we'll get the whole thing going, hopefully. So enjoy Budgie and Anglo.
We are all the heirs to Scotland, as a nation proudly stand. We will march beneath her banners to protect our ancient land. In the glens and cities, there on every street are the living heroes no army will defeat. Let our flag mean freedom and not a battle drum. To the world we bid a welcome in 1,000 different ways. We will toast to long lost friendships as we build our better days. In the glens and cities, there on every street are the living heroes no army will defeat. Let our flag mean freedom and not a battle drum. We are all the heroes of Scotland. We're a nation hand in hand. We will march beneath her banners to protect our ancient land. In the glens and cities, there on every street are the living heroes no army will defeat. Let our flag mean freedom and not a battle drum.
Good evening, folks. I hope you're all well. I hope you're all comfy, cozy, and looking forward to the weekend. Now, we're still waiting on Eki to join us, and unfortunately, Senson is not going to be with us this evening. His daughter and son-in-law contacted him shortly after I had made the announcement that he would be here. So obviously he cancelled out to be with his family, and they're going out for a meal tonight. So I thought rather than cancel it yet again, we would soldier on without our comrade Sedsum and do this documentary, The Eyes of Orson Welles. So I've got two of the guests here, which I will bring in. William, of course. Good evening, William.
All right.
Right,
Good
all
to
right.
be back. Good man.
And my son Samuel.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, hello. Thank you for coming.
So, will we spare a few moments for Eki to join us?
Aye. We'll give him a chance.
Well, that's very generous of us, I think. And let me catch up with you, William. What's been going on? How are you getting on at college? So it must be coming close to an end now.
Yeah, I completed my course on the end of last week. So
Did you?
I'm pretty happy. But I'm kind of. It was a tough decision to. I mean, part of me wanted to go on again and do my HND, but I wanted to kind of give it a break. To be honest, I started college again in 2022, so I've been hard at it, basically, head in the books for 2 year, pretty much solid. And I do want to do my HND, but I'm gonna, in kind of typical student-y style, I'm gonna have a year out, kind of. What do they call it when you have a break? I'm gonna have a break from it, basically.
Uh-huh.
I might try a few things, but
Yeah,
I kinda
a gap year.
a gap year. Yeah, that's the one. My whole life's been a gap year. But yeah, it's
I thought your
I
life
don't know.
was a gap.
Yeah, pretty much. I kind of felt, I don't know. It was a hard decision to make, to be honest. I mean, my lecturer wanted me to go on again, kind of like strike while the iron is hot, but I felt like I needed to take a bit of a break from it, reconnect with reality, so to speak. And I think God granted, next semester I'll go on and do my HND, which I looked at the course as well, and it's pretty much online. There's no practical element to it. It's all the assessments are done online. You do a thesis and stuff like that, and that everything's done online. So the whole online thing, it kind of got to me after a while. When I done level 6, there was certainly a more practical element to it, and I tend to enjoy that a lot more than sitting on the computer doing these. It wasn't through Zoom, but it was like Zoom. It was a program called WebEx, and you would be in an online class with all these people, which I mean, even that I was kind of, I don't know if struggling would be the word, but I didn't like it. There's something. It's not the same. The college try and say, look, it's practically the same as being in a class, but it's not.
Oh, no.
But I could still be the class clown from time to time.
when I was at Glasgow, they were short on lecturers, and they convinced most of the class or classes that we could go on without lecturers, that we could actually monitor, and assess ourselves in philosophy. I was one of the few people who argued against it. I lost, of course, and we had to go on. But to me, that was nothing but a ridiculous situation to allow the university to not employ somebody, even if it were only part time. And that's the trouble, I think, William, with some of these uh, institutions. They'll try it on if they think they can get away with it.
Yeah, yeah. We seen a bit of that as well. Uh, it was more about how much money can we save. So it wasn't really about how good can the teaching be, what's the best option for a student. It was more, well, where can we save money?
Yeah.
It seemed to be more about that. And they've actually cut a lot of the horticulture courses in Scotland now. I think up here level 6 got cut. So I just kind of made that. I got just under the wire, and then the whole course got pulled pretty much. So
Uh,
I was glad I got it, and I'm
but
glad I
you'll
done
be
my
okay if you
HNC.
when you sign up for the next lot.
Sorry,
You'll be okay when you sign up for the HNC, is it?
HND. I just done my
HND.
HNC. Yeah. So yeah, that'll definitely still be there. See, the thing about that, it's
Got that
practically
place guaranteed for you.
pretty much. Yeah, I would imagine I'll walk into it. So,
Well,
uh,
I would check
but
up on that and make sure that you are.
yeah, I was quite lucky because my main lecturer, he's based here in Elgin, and I got on really well with him. He's a great guy, a lot of knowledge, just full of knowledge. He's been
Sure.
about, travelled about Australia, India. So I got on really well with him. I have a lot of respect for him. And as
Good.
long as he's there, I should be alright. So, but I mean, again, the HND, it's pretty much online. So they won't get rid of that. They were more getting rid of what facilities can we get rid of, what gardens can we get rid of, how many teachers can we get rid of, and then they can save money that way.
Sure. Well, the carry on that I faced with the philosophy course, it didn't last long because it became very obvious very quickly that nobody had a bloody clue and nobody could help anybody else. So it was just a question of going along to the classroom, signing the registers that you were there, and then going for a coffee and spending 50 minutes, having a cup of coffee and a few cigarettes. The following year, they got a brilliant, absolutely brilliant young girl from Ireland. Uh, she was PhD level, absolutely brilliant. You should have seen the stay of her too. I mean, she she came to work with a real leather motorcycle jacket, short skirt, the thick tights, and the big tackety boots. She looked more like a student. She did. She did a lecturer, but she knew her stuff. Brilliant. Well, I don't know what's happening to Eki. Do you think I should send him another email?
Aye, yeah, I would chase them up. Typical American, right?
Typical American.
And I'm not surprised Sensum let us down again. I'd imagine he's actually away back to Thailand again. So, hey, what can we do? But I'll send him a message and yeah, get him told.
Family comes first.
Yeah, definitely.
All I've got to do now is find this.
I think it's more the curry that Sensum would be thinking of. He's more focused on the naan bread.
Ah, I forgot about that. That could be it.
Yeah, that sort of spice of life.
Have you got Ecky's email address, William?
I've not, no.
Yeah. Takes me that long to find it. I don't really want to start unless it's here, you know. Oh, come on, John. Find it. Ah, there he is. Finally. Go below.
So for your course, William, is the whole thing just online sessions?
Pretty much, yeah. The HND's completely online, but the HNC, the one I just completed, it was only Monday online, Tuesday online, Wednesday practical, then Thursday online. So pretty much the whole thing was online.
Yeah.
It seemed to the whole 2020 scenario. They put most of it online, and then had this idea that we can just keep it that way and save a load of money. So they kept it. But I'd always said, look, it's not the same. It's not the same as being actually sitting in a class with a teacher and socialising. There's a lot of stuff to that as well. But I mean, it can be handy to an extent. Obviously, with me and the kids, I could be at home and pretend I'm online.
Yeah. I mean, as you say, there is some pros to it, and obviously, depending upon what the course is, lends itself perhaps to being online. But you need that hands-on, that
Yeah.
face-to-face experience, and particularly if there's a physical aspect to the what your course is about.
Yeah, certainly
Yeah.
horticulture. You're working with plants, you're learning about them,
Yeah.
growing conditions, growing medium, well, compost, and I mean, it's definitely more a hands-on course. So level 6 was really good. I went straight into level 6. There's level 5, level 6, then HNC, HND. Then you're going on to, you're talking master's degree. So I skipped level 5, but I kind of wish I'd done it because it had a lot more in the way of vegetable growing. Whereas in level 6 it was more plant-based rather than growing crops and stuff. But we covered a lot of that in the HNC. That was more focused on crop production, the business element to it. There was a big part of it focused on the whole social horticulture aspect, where they want to, well, they've already started, they bring it into the NHS and use it to rehabilitate people and just show the benefits of growing plants and working with plant life, basically. But I mean, it kind of got lost at some point. It's being reintroduced, but it goes way back, basically, to the beginning of time, where even the Phoenicians and different civilizations, they understood the benefit of working with plants and growing them and caring for them, using them, obviously eating crops and using plants for medicinal purposes. But somewhere along the line, probably due to big pharma, that kind of got lost and demonized. But it's slowly coming back, and it was interesting. There was a debate we had one time, and one of the students was talking about, I think it's just a cop out, so the NHS does not have to pay for pharmaceutical products like pills and what have you. And I kind of thought, well, I don't think it is. Surely people would rather this element to it, a natural element to it, rather than here, take this pill, and then take this one and take this one. But I mean, the benefits of it are quite outstanding, to be honest. It helps a lot of people. I think there's a big part of soldiers that have got PTSD, is it?
Yeah.
They seem to be pushing it quite a lot. A lot of them have been coming out and saying, look, it's helped me wonders, getting back to a functioning way of life, caring for plants and working with plants and just every aspect about it. I mean, there's the caring side of it, watching something grow, looking after it, but then there's physical aspects to it. So there's many ways it can help somebody. I've always kind of known. I mean, from a young age, I've been pretty much an outdoors person. I love nothing more than being out and amongst it. But it was as I got older, I understood the benefits of it. But when I was young, that's where I always loved to be, out and about, looking at trees and climbing trees and what have you. So, I mean, it's natural. For me, it's a natural thing. But a lot of people, they don't stay in an area like me. I'm basically in the countryside. People that stay in big cities and they don't really get to the country, they've never grown anything. They don't understand to an extent how much it can help you as a person. So I think a lot of people are going to hear more about it throughout the years. It's kind of taken off as a kind of a business element in the UK. So they were pushing quite a lot of students, saying, look, if you want to get into the business side of it, this might be the route to go down. And I think the NHS have started many different projects now where they've got a garden and they take people along to it and it helps them out. And people have dismissed it, but they can dismiss it at their peril.
Yeah.
Right,
there's definitely a lot of benefits.
I think we should just start without him. And if he turns up, he turns up. Okay, doke. Is that okay?
Yeah. We'll just name,
cool.
We'll just shame him into the corner.
Okay, doke. Anglo has made a comment about the last man on Earth. He's asking me, the last man on Earth and the Omega Man, where the bases of I Am Legend. They're both worth a look. So I just want to let you know, Anglo, I have seen both of these movies and the Heston one as well. I saw the Heston one and the Vincent Price one in the cinema when we had cinemas here. So just let you know, I know about the films, and they are good, all of them in their own different ways. So that's that answered. Uh, so we're going to start, as I usually do with these movie reviews. As you picked this film, Samuel, can you explain why you chose this film?
Yes, it was a sneaky way to uh, plug in Orson Welles into the film night um, without having to wait a really, really long time for a category to come round by for one of his actual films to be selected. Because that's your favourite.
So what was your thoughts on the documentary then?
The
Did you know
documentary.
who made it?
Sorry?
Did you know the maker of the documentary?
I recognised the name. I recognised him from his time at BBC when we used to watch BBC. Um, I thought it was well made. I felt it was more of a film about the filmmaker's ability to make a film, loosely based upon some aspects of Orson Welles that didn't particularly fascinate me. I wanted more about the man in general, the filmmaker, the the storyteller, the the larger than life personality that he's described as, the magician, obviously. And I didn't really get that. I got a wee bit about his love life ish and some odd insight into his life, but yeah.
Okay, that'll do as a good start. William, what was your thoughts on the documentary, The Eyes of Orson Welles?
Overall, yeah, I liked it. I thought it was good. Probably one that I would recommend.
Any particular reason for liking it? Did you like the approach that the person took?
Yeah, I felt it was a wee bit different. It felt quite personal, quite intimate, which I was quite surprised by. I was unsure what to expect, but I felt his approach was, it was kind of like a letter to Orson Welles in a sense. And I liked the idea
Oddly
of,
enough, sorry to interrupt. Oddly enough, that's what I was thinking. Is it was like a love letter towards Orson.
yeah, it was very, very sort of personal. I mean, the guy's life is extensive, so to fit everything in would be, it would have been even longer than it was. I think it was nearly 2 hours. You would have been, you could do, hey, you could do a 12-hour documentary on that guy probably to get everything in. But I thought, yeah, it had a personal element to it, and I enjoyed the way it was laid out.
Okay. What about you, Eki? Oh, Eki, you're not here, of course.
Ooh, burn.
I I wasn't greatly enamored by the documentary. I learned nothing about Orson Welles, but that's because I started knowing a lot. That's not to say that there's nothing I could learn. I'm sure there was tons that I could learn, but I learned nothing from this. Uh, and I could see what his point was. What was the point of the documentary? Because you don't have to be knowledgeable about Orson Welles to know that he did many different things in his life, and he did them rather well. So I'm not quite sure that their best approach was, as it seemed to me anyway, that he was concentrating on his ability to paint and draw. So what do you think, Samuel?
With regards to what?
What I just said.
Well, as said to you before, you know more about him than I do. But I felt like it didn't tell me a great deal. It certainly focused on the artwork, his drawing, and how that shaped some of his life, and tried to tell this tale. I didn't find that it was particularly successful. It didn't engage me. Again, everyone's different. I know Williams just said that he enjoyed it and he would recommend it. I think it's perhaps worth a watch to at least give it a go. Um, I think it's a coin flip, really, if you would get into it. Um, and obviously, you're interested in the man. If you've got no interest in him, then I don't think there's any point watching it because there's nothing really spectacular that the filmmaker does to show you anything about him. It just felt very middle of the road. Um, he was trying to be very artistic about it. It was nice getting some brief interviews with his daughter, um, and seeing his artwork, which was news to me, admittedly. But I felt it focused on that too much. I would have liked to have seen a large portion about the magic. Um, I was surprised that there wasn't any reference to his interviews on Parkinson's. Maybe that's a copyright issue. I don't know, but there was a lot left out, and no mention of why he was, left and ignored by Hollywood, why he was out and about in Europe doing what he was doing. There was just a lot not said, But again, as William rightly said, if you want to know more about this guy, you would need a couple of films worth of content because he had such a vast, varied life.
How about you, William? Did you feel that you actually learned anything about the man that you didn't already know?
To be honest, I know John is a big fan, and I think you and your son are pretty well versed on Orson Welles, his life, what he achieved, where he went, what he done. Me, not so much. So for me, it was there was parts that I didn't know about, and I did feel I learnt a wee bit more about the guy. And yeah, it seemed like a personal touch. I mean, it started off where he buys this box of sketches and drawings that Orson had done. And it was pretty much, and I think he described it as a sketchbook of Orson's life. And on one hand, you could say, well, it's only drawings, but you can look more into that. You can look at what he was drawing, where he was drawing it, why he was drawing it, what was he trying to say in the images that he was drawing. So for me, it was quite telling a lot of the time, and I think he was a great artist, but I don't know. I don't know if great would be maybe too much. He was good. He was a good artist. I'm not sure about great. I never knew about his obsession with people's noses. I thought that was quite interesting. But in terms of when they got the box of goodies, this unopened sort of delivery, I kind of thought, right, what's it going to be? Is it going to be photos? And it ended up being the sketches and paintings that he had done that were, as far as I'm aware, unseen to a lot of people, especially me anyway. So
Yeah,
it was interesting to look at that aspect of it and the different letters that he had wrote.
yeah,
And I think when, like your son said, the interviews with his daughter, I found them really interesting. But there was a bit that I really did like, and it was when his daughter had an unopened letter, and they thought, right, we'll open it and see what's inside, and there was nothing inside it. It was an empty envelope, and it kind of raised more questions than answers to this guy who was a mysterious. I mean, he appeared to be a genius, but he was also very mysterious, very hard working, and just a unique character who basically, from what I could see, he set out early on, a genius at a young age with painting, piano, acting, at a very young age, set out to travel the world, Ireland, I think, Morocco, Spain, and just soaked it all up. And I kept thinking this guy was absolutely fearless. There was nowhere or nothing that he wouldn't do, he wouldn't go, he wouldn't try. And as much as he was mysterious and fearless, I got the impression he was very fair and very kind of humble about life. No matter who you were or where you were from, you would be on the same kind of level, basically. And I think they referred to the incident with the black individual who got beaten up and he by a police officer, and he went blind, basically got
yeah.
his eyes beat out, which I never knew about any of that. I thought that was quite telling as to the sort of person that he was, even though he had this sort of stature.
And also, again, I don't know if you picked it up, but he was the first person to present a stage version of Macbeth, where every actor was a black person and actually flew in, believe it or not, flew in a witch doctor and his assistants from Africa to play the witches. And
Yeah,
this whole production was just overwhelmed with the public trying to get in to see it. It was such a huge, huge hit. Never been done, of course. And he wanted to show other people that black people could take these roles on and play them without it being funny.
yeah, I did. I don't remember. I think they did mention it in the documentary, but I read more about that
Yeah.
particular play, and I think at the time they called it the voodoo Macbeth.
Is that,
It had it had this voodoo element to it,
yeah,
and
that's right.
instead of being set in Scotland, it was set on a Caribbean island.
Yeah, yeah. Huge success, of course, uh, as was his modern dress, Julius Caesar. It was done in black fascist uniforms with long black boots as they were wearing in Italy. That's how he did that. And that went down like, you know, a hurricane. Hugely successful. So he was the first to do many things in his life and break down barriers for all sorts of people, not just on the stage, but in the cinema as well, of course.
Yeah, I think was his first film was um the Khan one, was it?
No, what he wanted to do, his first film that he started working on when he was working for RCA was The Heart of Darkness, Conrad, Joseph Conrad's book. Uh, it was eventually turned into a movie called, what do you call it, the Vietnam.
Apocalypse Now.
Sorry?
Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, that's it. Well, he started working on it. Did some set designs and what have you, but he couldn't get the budget down to suit RKO, so they wouldn't let him do it. But that should have been his first film.
Is that one that it was never completed?
Yeah, he only did a couple of scenes because, as I say, he couldn't get the budget down, so he had
Yeah,
to.
I think I read that was quite um it was quite common throughout his life, and I was speaking to my wife at the time, and I said he seems to start a project, but it never, a lot of the time it never got finished for whatever reason, and people would want to change it. And my wife said he sounds a bit like you. You start something and then you don't complete it. So we've got something in common, I guess. But yeah, the film I was thinking of was the Citizen Kane. Is it Citizen Kane?
That comes later, so it does. But it should have been Heart of Darkness. Money costs, that's what crippled it. So he had to abandon it.
Hmm.
And it's the same as he then did Citizen Kane. And the famous quote I like that comes from Citizen Kane is the night of the premiere. And at the end of it, all the big stars and producers and what have you are all coming out of the cinema. And John Wayne apparently said, "Well, I guess we'll all go back to making B movies now."
That's a great compliment, that.
Oh, yeah, but I think today it's overlooked because so much has changed in the film-making process. But back then, when it was made, it radicalized so much that it took years and years for the other people who worked in Hollywood to try and catch up with some of his methods. The whole idea of telling a fragmented story, for example, had never been done before. The way it was told from different points of view.
Yeah, I did read that.
Completely different. On the photographic side, of course, he was blessed by good fortune having Greg Toland as his cinematographer, who,
Best in the business at the time.
well, not just that, but he was a man who knew a lot about his profession or the technical side. So he was aware uh, that the film stock that Hollywood was using was going out and the new film stock was coming in. And the new film stock that was coming in was panchromatic film. And the film that they had been using was orthochromatic film. Now, what's the difference here? Well, the difference is all about exposure latitude, which meant, and because Greg Toland was on top of all this, he knew all about all of this stuff. It allowed photographers to have larger apertures, longer exposures, and deeper shadows. In other words, because the film stock had changed to panchromatic film, where all the colours registered, the blacks were black and the whites were absolutely white. Whereas in orthochromatic film, you could never get a proper black. So, to make this simple for anybody who doesn't really know what I'm talking about here, if you look at the film of Boris Karloff, where he's playing the Frankenstein monster, it looks as though he's got black lips. And if you look at Bela Lugosi playing Dracula, it looks as though he's got black lips. They don't. They both have red lips, like deep red lipstick they're wearing. But because of the film and how the film works, it shows up as this dark grey colour. And that's why they use it. But then when panchromatic film came along, they had to stop that practice. Otherwise, it would have shown up more like a red. That all makes sense, William?
Yeah, he's gone.
Is he going?
A wee bit, yeah. I muted myself. You certainly know your stuff with the filming aspect of it, but I got the kind of feeling you were dealing with a guy here who was probably ahead of his time.
Yeah, well, you got to remember, he didn't know anything about filmmaking. He didn't know anything about film. That was Greg Toland. Greg Toland said to him, have you made a film? He said, I've never made a film. I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about direct. He says, don't worry. I can teach you everything you need to know in an afternoon. And apparently that's what he did. He took him to his house. And him and Greg Toland sat for an afternoon and ran and reran Stagecoach so that Orson Welles understood the whole process about how the camera should be facing, where it should be facing this way or that way, all about the film stock and the aperture and all that. So that when they came to shooting, he would know what he was doing. That would make a bit more sense.
Yeah, definitely.
and just to highlight the point of how good Toland was.
Toland was brilliant.
He was the mastermind behind the camera for a small budget film you may know of Gone with the Wind. You know,
That's right. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. He was an expert. Uh, Sad to say, he didn't get the recognition that he truly deserved. But that was Hollywood in those days. But
Yeah.
that's the point where Hollywood, the making side of films, that's where it's changing. That's when it changes. Right there, when the film stock changes from orthochromatic to panchromatic. I wrote a huge essay about this when I was at uni. I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. Because they were arguing one thing about it, and I said, no. You're wrong. You're wrong. And here's why you're wrong. And I went into this big thing, like I've tried to explain to you there a little bit about the film stock, how much of a difference that makes. It allows film noir to exist.
Yeah.
Does that make a bit more sense to you, William?
A wee bit, aye.
Yeah. I was actually
You might
going to
need.
mention that because you'd be like, without that film stock, that whole genre would struggle
Mhm.
to take off or even happen, perhaps.
Yeah, well, that's kind of right. It
Yeah.
did exist in France to some extent, but that's simply because the French have got a different way of making movies than what they do in America.
Yeah.
But the film stock accounts for most of it. Even the low budget or so-called low budget horror movies that were starting to be made in the 1940s, stock film allowed for a lot of that because you could have these black areas, that perhaps the monster was in the shadows and you couldn't see it. Well, it was a film stock that allowed all that to happen. And that's where we first see it being used to its finest, where we see Citizen Kane and most of the shots that are in it. He goes on, of course, and then makes the magnificent Ambersons, which is an even better film than Citizen Kane, but it's totally destroyed by the studio, unfortunately. But that's a different story.
Is that the
Yeah.
one they took out like 40 minutes of the film?
Yes, yes, they took the whole ending out, and then they got who do you call him, Joseph Cotton, and the female, what's her name, to refilm some of the scenes and patched it all together in a completely ham-fisted way and ruined, which
Yeah.
was probably a much better film than Citizen Kane. So yeah,
Yeah. I found it interesting that, I mean, it seemed like he was from from quite early on, he was known for being good at what he done, but then he still struggled to get funding a lot of the time.
well, again, that's because of the way Hollywood was. Hollywood then, uh, William, was completely different. You've got to remember, everyone was under contract. And if you were under contract, you were expected to do as you were told. And if you didn't do as you were told, you were suspended without pay. And you couldn't work anywhere else. So it was very much a strict rule they had over everyone. That
Hmm.
includes all the ordinary folk behind the camera, like plumbers and electricians and all that sort of stuff.
Was
Not
that
just
why he? Would that be why he? I think he went to Europe to do most of the work that he done.
That's part of the reason. That's part of the reason that he was very friendly with what do you call him? The president, Roosevelt. And Roosevelt asked him to go to South America to make a film. Didn't care what the film was. Would he just go and make a film? Because he was trying to rope in the South American countries into collaborating with America to fight against the Germans. And being a very patriotic man, that's what he did. He went to South America. And while he was in South America, he went there, of course, with no script. Film crew, certainly, but no script and no idea about what he was going to do. And while he was there, the studio re-edited the Magnificent Ambersons and ruined it. And he never was allowed then to make a film and direct it. Meanwhile, he tried to make this film in South America, which he did. It's just a PR thing, political. I couldn't get, when he came back to Hollywood, the only job he could get was acting. And it was, I think it was the last job he took, Jane Eyre. And then he left for Europe to try and raise money.
Yeah, because when he signed his contract with RKO, it was one of a kind because he was given complete control and autonomy over his. I think it was originally his first 3 films. I think it was going to be
3 films. Yep.
Yeah, and because obviously with some fallout from Citizen Kane and one individual, would have put pressure on RKO to destroy Ambersons whilst he was away, and to ensure that no other person in Hollywood had that sort of contract offered to them ever again.
That's very true. That's exactly what happened. He never got that again, and nobody else got that again. And the other thing was that Hearst, who the film was loosely based on, tried to buy the negative from RKO. And had he been able to buy it, no one would ever have seen that film because he was going to burn it. But thankfully, that never happened. But it was nip and tuck whether it was going to happen or not. So ultimately, he had to leave because he couldn't get work. And that's where he begins to make The Trial with the chap who, what do you call it? In Psycho, what's his name? Anthony Perkins. He makes The Trial with him. Happy House is saying, good evening, Happy House, by the way. In Hollywood, the last job you could get was acting. Brilliant. Well, that's true. See, he never really wanted to be an actor. He wanted to he wanted to do the directing. I like one of the quotes that he used to give out all the time was when he was asked, well, "What is it like Hollywood?" and he said that making a movie was like playing with the biggest railway set in the world.
Yeah, I did see that quote. I looked up some quotes because anytime I watch a film or especially a documentary, I'll go on top of that. I'll do my own kind of looking and digging. And
Uh-huh.
quotes is something that I go to, and he's got quite good quotes. To be fair, a really interesting character. I like the women as well, by the sounds of it. I think
Oh
Ma-
gosh. And the
married
women,
on
yeah, William. The women he
multiple
could get.
occasions. I did read as well. He the sort of in terms of the sort of character that he was. There was a movie, the lady from Shanghai, I think, with I think it was his wife at the time, Rita Hayworth, and he played a prank on her where he put a real shark in the swimming pool.
That's Orson Welles for you. And the other thing that people don't know about him, there's many things they don't, but one of the most important things was that before he ever went to Hollywood, he was he was a celebrity on American radio shows, and the money that he earned from that, he bought a theatre in New York, and him and his partner ran it. But he did, most of the money came from the radio work that he did. And he discovered that it was not illegal to travel about in an ambulance if you weren't ill. So he bought an ambulance, hired a driver because he couldn't drive, and this ambulance would take him from one radio station to the next one so he could earn more money by jumping from station to station. True. And he was the voice of a very famous radio character called the Shadow. The Shadow knows. And of course, he did the War of the Worlds on radio, the famous broadcast. You know about
Yeah, I did. Well, I knew about it, but I never knew it was Orson Welles who done the commentary. Of course, it was H.G. Wells who wrote it.
that? Of course.
But I
Yeah.
thought H.G. Wells also done the commentary, but through this I found out it was Orson that done it, and he done it in like a news bulletin style, and people thought, what the heck? This is real.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, because that was his production company. That was his wee clique that he did that with. And many of them would go into RKO with him. And if you haven't listened to it, it still stands the test of time. It's still fantastic. Still fantastic. Definitely worth a listen.
Yeah, one of my pals bought me that CD. It's on CD. War of the Worlds by Orson Welles. Really, really good.
Yeah.
Of course, after that, they passed a lot of laws to prevent anyone else from doing it. And at that time, he hired a professional magician to teach him how to do magic because he wanted to be a magician. And when he was unable to get work elsewhere, he would quite often appear in Las Vegas as a magician to get money.
Was that because I read that he was quite close to the guy Houdini?
Nah, Houdini was dead long before Orson came along. Somebody's got that a wee bit wrong. But he would have known other musicians of the day, but certainly not Houdini. Got to remember when Houdini was about, will you? Long before Orson Welles.
Yeah. Houdini would have crept in at the tail end of the silent era.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else that we could talk about this documentary? Or is anybody in the chat got any questions, perhaps?
Cue the cricket sounds.
Well, that's right, Happy House. Happy House is reminding us that when Orson Welles did this War of Worlds, it was Halloween for a start. It was done on Halloween night. And there were people running from their houses, screaming and hollering, getting into their cars and trying to make for the mountains to get out of the city because they thought it was real.
Yeah.
It caused an absolute panic all over New York and beyond. Of course, the following day, the papers were covered in it, and that made him world famous.
Yeah, because it was portrayed as real, and as you said, that's where they had to come up with a disclaimer saying what you're about to listen to is a production of a play or whatever, some sort of content warning, an early content warning,
Yeah.
to make sure that people understood that this was a work of fiction. But it must have been absolutely wild listening to that live for the very first time. That must have been so crazy. So crazy. I would have liked to have been there.
Well, his point was the fact that there were so many people on radio at that time that people did believe who were not speaking anywhere near the truth. And he wanted to show that up for what it was, that it was wrong because people sat there and took it all in. Happy House is saying, I remember a slightly different thing in 2020 when the people stayed in their houses. Exactly. Good point. I like it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I looked. I had to check because the bit that I read, he never knew Houdini later in life, but he met him as a young boy. Seemingly, Houdini was a friend of Orson's mother.
okay. That's interesting. I didn't know that. I thought he was a bit young. But yeah, his mother was a bit of a celebrity in her time as well. Very talented lady, apparently. And all sorts of people would come to the house, according to what he said.
Interesting. Was she Hollywood as well?
Who? Orson?
His mum.
Oh, no. No, wannabe. I think wannabe and a celebrity, definitely artistic type, and definitely a celebrity of her time. And of course, she encouraged her son in every direction to be an artist. Apparently, he was considered a, a genius, a boy genius, violin player, piano player.
Yeah, I did read that very early on.
Yeah,
Noted for his talent.
yeah.
I seen one of his quotes. It said, "I started from the top and worked down."
That's a brilliant one.
Yeah, yeah.
Start at the top and work all my way all the way down. Which sadly is true.
Yeah. Yeah, because if your first film is Citizen Kane, regarded by many to be the best film ever made, how do you go up from that? It's
Yeah.
not possible.
I remember
Yeah,
also,
that's
he's only 25 when he makes that.
yeah, that's the impression I got. I thought, wow, he set the bar quite high, so
Yeah.
hard to do it again over time, I suppose. But I think he was obviously dealing with an industry who want to strip away certain parts of your project and your art. That would be like banging your head against a wall.
Absolutely, William. Absolutely. And the other thing is, too, the other thing that's quite remarkable is if you look at the Citizen Kane carefully, you will see quite a remarkable piece of uh, makeup and acting as he takes that character from being a young man in his 20s all the way through to being an old man and eventually dying. And it's quite brilliant, really. When you see the makeup, you see the costume, and you see the way he plays it, it's just quite remarkable.
Yeah, that was something I found out reading about him in terms of how many characters he could act out, even to the point where sometimes he would dress up as a different person, and even his close friends wouldn't recognize him or know who he was.
Have you
And
have
when
you have you
that
seen?
mentioned, sorry, that mentioned, it went on to mention about his kind of, I think it called it an obsession with noses, and he
That's right.
he even had a collection of them, and I thought that is a weird collection to have that.
Yeah, well, apparently he wouldn't go on without some kind of false nose attached to himself.
Yeah, it did say that. It said he
Yeah,
didn't like his own nose for some reason.
I've no idea why. Weird, absolutely weird.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you could say nobody knows.
yep. You know the old saying, you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your nose.
Quite, quite.
There was a great quote that I had seen. I mean, there's a lot of good ones that he done, but one of the ones that caught my eye, it was, if you want a happy ending, that depends on, of course, on where you stop your story.
Excellent. That's true.
Yeah, definitely.
That's true. So, do you want to continue this discussion on Orson Welles, or have we exhausted it? William?
I'm all good. I mean, it's up to you, John, totally, but I can easily go on for a bit. He's certainly a fascinating character.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. You also have to, the other thing about this man, you have to be very careful about is he told a lot of lies about himself. Uh, he was never picked up on it. I think it's because people had such a high regard for him, they never questioned some of the stories that were highly
Yeah,
questionable.
I think they mentioned that in the documentary where he pretended he was a an art critic, and he was getting into different art galleries and pretending he was someone else, but he spoke with such confidence and intelligence that people thought, "Fuck, bloody hell, he must be. He must be who he says he is." So he was like a bit of a trickster, but very
Yeah,
confident.
yeah, yeah. Well, there's two stories that I don't accept at all. I think they were just pure fantasy. It was just typical Orson Welles wanting to put himself in the centre of everything. And he told a story about when he was very young after he had left Ireland. Now, the usual story is when he left Ireland, he went back to the USA. But in this version of it, that's not what happened. This version, after he left Ireland, he went to Europe and he went on another walking trip, hiking actually, as he called it. And he was hiking in the Austrian Alps. And you'll never guess who he bumped into.
Take
Not
a guess,
Houdini.
William.
Eh?
It wasn't Houdini.
No, it wasn't Houdini, no. He he claimed he
Gandhi.
no, Adolf Hitler. He
Oh,
claimed
right.
he met Adolf Hitler in the Alps as he was out hiking. I don't believe that for a minute. Not for a minute do I believe that. Well, there you go. As a reference for people who may be interested. Happy House, Orson Welles, short stories on Sky Arts, available on Council Telly. So there you go. And he also told a story about another occasion when he ran into Winston Churchill, which I also don't believe. But he was like that. So sometimes when you hear things said about him or him speaking about himself, you have to take it with a little bit of salt because it's just not.
Yeah. There was a story I read, and seemingly he won the Oscar for Citizen Kane, but then he sold it to get money. He sold it off to get money.
Well, I don't know about that, but I could easily believe it. I could easily believe it. He travelled all over the place, William, to get money for
Yeah.
movies.
Do you think part of the reason he was kind of shunned to an extent in terms of funding was because of his political views?
No, no, absolutely no. He really wasn't much of a political figure in that sense. I think it's safe to say he didn't like the idea of fascism or communism, but he really wasn't a political figure at all. And I don't think it had anything to do with that. I think it was more to do with he got an unfair reputation for being uncontrollable, to be someone who spent over the budget. And the sad part of all of that is that none of it was true. He just got this reputation. Happy House is saying, mention a swastika in Germany and nobody knows what you're talking about. I don't know. Happy House, I couldn't say myself.
Yeah.
It said in the documentary he died on beside his typewriter or on his typewriter. He
Yeah,
seemed to
partly.
go through his whole life writing and drawing and painting every day, anywhere he went.
Partly. We have someone in the chat by the name of D. Martin. I have Orson's autograph. How about that? Isn't that pretty neat?
Yeah, that's cool.
Pretty
Yeah.
cool. I've got Houdini's, but you can't see it.
Oh,
Well, I can do one better than that. I've got one of John Davidson's. You can't see it.
Couldn't resist.
I'll sell you one.
yeah. Apparently, Orson always had an unfinished script with him at all times for his latest project or multiple projects. That
Yeah,
would be
he seemed
keen to show anyone that had money that could finance him.
the guy seemed absolutely relentless in terms of writing and ideas. I kind of wonder if that he felt that was a gift or it was more like an issue that he had where he couldn't stop. He could not stop.
No, it's if it's true, and I believe it is true. I used to say to my big pal Jerry would say to me, "Do you never take a break, John? Ever stop?" And I used to always say to him, if I ever stop doing what I'm doing, I'll never start again. And guess what, William?
You were right.
I was right. I never started again. I've got.
So do you think
I've
that
got
he kind of do you think he maybe felt like that? I can't stop.
I think that happens to a lot of people. For different reasons, of course. I'm not saying my reasons were the same as his. I don't know. But I think he was perhaps worried that if he stopped and had a look at what he had achieved in his life, he might have been grossly unhappy when he tried to put it all together and summarize it. He should have done more, but didn't.
Yeah, because I was thinking of how to describe him, and fearless and relentless kept coming to my mind, because when I was reading, it was talking about how he continued to write constantly, and sketching and drawing and painting, even to the point where he would go to the restaurant and he'd be sitting writing, eating his dinner.
Yeah.
Well, there's a good comment here from D. Martin. If I had Rita Hayworth for a wife, I would be happy. That's for sure.
Yeah, you can see how he fell in love with Rita.
Oh, who wouldn't? Yeah. Budget is a good comment there, a good observation from Budget. To stop is to recharge. I was I was part of the way through, a good part of the way through a short story that I had put together for my friend Jerry. There was a particular kind of story that he liked. So I decided I would write for one of these stories for him and give it to him as a gift when he came home because he was in Florida on holiday at the time. So I started writing this story, and then I was at the I was at the computer writing away when the phone rang, and when I answered it, it was my sister telling me that Jerry had passed away. And when I finished the conversation on the telephone, I went and put the computer off, I closed it, and I never went back to the story.
Can I ask what was the story about?
Well, Jerry loved what he called uh, the locked box mysteries. Like Sherlock Holmes had a lot of these, apparently. So what you get is, like Cluedo, there's a murder in the library, and the doors are locked and the windows are closed. Who did it? That kind of mystery. Uh, so I decided that I would put one together, and that's what I was working on because he liked that, and I had never done one, and I was going to give it to him as a hopefully as a Christmas present. It would have been finished by Christmas, but he never came home alive. Uh, D. Martin is asking, is it true that Orson Welles' remains are at the bottom of a Spanish well? No, it's not quite true. I believe they have been buried at the foot of a Spanish tree in some village that he was incredibly fond of. But I don't know the village, to be honest.
Interesting. When I was reading about some of the pranks that he done, seemingly, I don't know if it's true or not, but seemingly he once faked that he was dead, that he had been murdered. And his friends came into a room and he's lying there dead and there's blood everywhere. But it was just a prank. But it shows you what sort of character.
Oh, Budgie's got a message for you. Budgie say, thank you, William. Encourage John to tell more.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever considered finishing it off and maybe put it on Jerry's grave?
That has been suggested to me. I don't know what it is. I just don't know what it is. Every time I think
Yeah.
about it, it puts me on the brink of tears.
Yeah. Yeah. It brings you back to that moment.
Yeah, that night takes me back to that night. Um, and I've got a couple of other. I've got a novel that's like that as well. Unfinished for highly emotional reasons. But this is a short story. Well, it's a long short story. And, I don't even know if he'd have liked it. You know, I get very emotional when I start talking about it, folks, because
Yeah, I understand.
Jerry and I, we were friends from the age of 10. We went through secondary school and stayed friends until he went away to Florida to die. But maybe I can get over it. Maybe I could get over it if I could just open up the computer and start.
Yeah, maybe completing it might put a completion sort of element to it.
Yeah, closure. You mean?
Yeah, closure. Yeah. How far in the were you? Maybe Jerry's up there saying, "Hey, get that finished. I want to know. I want to know what happened."
Who was the villain? Well, it's set in the future for a start. It's set in the future, and it involves a set of three very rare books, and one, oh, yeah, one was owned by the person who has been murdered. But we don't find that out until the police go to his house and discover that there's a space in the shelf and that there isn't a book there and it should be there. And they hunt that down and discover that it's one of three books. And the legend is that if you have these three books, it will tell you the access to a secret part of the world that's never been visited.
I kind of
That's
want to
it.
read it myself. I'm wanting to read it now.
Does that sound interesting?
Yep, sounds pretty good.
And what's supposed to happen then is the second book, they know it is stolen from a private library in Germany. And if I remember correctly, the third one was stolen from a private collection in New York. And they think it was done by the same person, but I'm not sure. And they're trying to find this person who stole the book, or books, should I say, because they now have the three of them. They can now access this secret place. And that's kind of where I left it.
Right, that's it set. You're getting the computer out next time. I need to know now.
How does it end? Yeah, well, it all ties up with other stuff, you know. It was to tie up with all sorts of other stuff. That's all. That nothing to do with me. I didn't write this other material, but I found this other material, and I was going to link it all up. So there you go. That's it. I can't even remember the working title I had for it. But he loved that kind of story, you see. There was a mystery to be solved because he was a big Sherlock Holmes fan.
Yeah,
That,
I
that's
can
a,
understand. I can understand. I mean, you're kind of the reasons why you wouldn't maybe go back to it, but I think Jerry would want it completed. Plus, I'm wanting it finished now, so
Quite, quite. Maybe I will get back to it, William.
Cool. And I think you would enjoy it as well, and I think it would give you something to be aiming for and take your mind off other stuff.
Hartley House has said he's right into time travel type stories and books. Well, oddly enough, Happy House, there is an element of that to this story. I like that from Budgie. Working titles are a social construct. They surely are, Budgie. Absolutely. So, in fact, I think, if I remember correctly, William, that's the very last thing I was working on, writing wise.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be nice to get back to it, I suppose. I mean, I can understand the reason for stopping it, but yeah, I think it would be good to try and get it complete, put a bit of closure, then I can find out what happened.
What lies behind it all? Yeah, yeah.
I think H.G. Wells done what was it called, the time machine, the time traveler, or the time
Time
machine?
machine.
Yeah, the time machine. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've
I've
read
got
most of that,
Yeah.
but apart from that, I've not read many on time travel. Of course, Back to the Future, the movie, was probably more my sort of thing.
Well, he was the one that started it, to be honest. But there are tons of time travel stories if you want to be bothered to look. Harder to
Quantum-
find these days than
Yeah.
it used to be when I was a very young man. It was easy.
Quantum Leap, the TV series.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I heard of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Budget. H.G. Orson Welles.
Do you know, I watched an interesting stream, and it was with I think he's a physicist called John Hutchison, and he created this, I think he created it, it's called the Hutchison effect, where he was bending all kinds of metal and stuff like that with different microwaves. But he was on a stream and they were taking questions, and him and his wife work on different projects that they've got. And I asked him if he reckoned that time travel would be possible, and he said, well, I'm actually working on a time travel project at the moment. And I was like, Jesus, holy moly. So he reckons there's an element to it that could be achieved. So if I find out, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Please do.
Yeah.
Just saying. There is
That's
a time.
that's surely a great Scot. Shout out that.
Oh, here's a question. I don't know if the guests can answer this one, D. Martin. We are being asked, how do you rate Orson's Falstaff? Can you answer this question?
I can't fairly answer that question.
That leaves
Is that
me.
a book? Is that a movie or a book?
It's a character.
Oh, well, I can't answer it then.
You can't answer that, William.
I'll pass that to you, John.
Okay. I think it's one of the best things he ever did was the Falstaff. Chimes at midnight. Underrated, of course, as always. Shakespeare, of course, not really welcomed by the general public, but I think it's one of his best performances ever.
And we all know what his last film is, don't we?
Transformers.
Yep.
Can anybody in the chat name Orson Welles' last film?
We just mentioned it.
I get the impression he was heavily influenced from Shakespeare. Would you agree to that, John?
Say that again, William.
I kind of got the impression Shakespeare was a heavy influence.
On Orson Welles,
Yeah.
of course. He, he was in school. He wrote, or rewrote, should I say, the Shakespearean dramas and put them into a shortened form suitable for schoolboys. It was published as a series of booklets. But Chimes at Midnight is where Falstaff is, and what he did there was he took three of the Shakespeare plays, put them together, took that character of Falstaff out of it, out of the three plays, and welded it all together and made this his own. And it's brilliant.
So would that not be on the sort of borderline plagiarism?
It's hardly plagiarism, William, when Shakespeare was writing in the end of the 15th century.
What do you put a cap on stuff like that?
Sorry?
Would you put a cap on stuff like that? Would it? Because I know Johnny Cash, there was a couple of songs that he done, and he took it from a 15th century musical writing, bit of musical writing, and I thought, bloody hell, he stole it. But because it was so long ago, it wasn't looked at in that way. But in my eyes, it's a bit like plagiarism.
Well, I would regard taking from Shakespeare as being a theft, a breach of copyright, because he always acknowledged where the material came from. He never pretended that he had written all this.
Yeah.
Now, that's a different story. If you take stuff and you say, no, I got that from Shakespeare and this is what I did with it.
Yeah, true.
And that's what he did there. He never ever claimed that he wrote Chimes at Midnight. Well, he did write Chimes at Midnight, but as what he used as a base material was three Shakespeare dramas.
Yeah, to put it into sort of modern YouTube terms, he's done a transformative creative project. Like a...
Well, if we use modern language, we would say he reimagined Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Put it that way. And Budge is bringing up another aspect, of course, which is also incredibly true. I'll read Budgie. Orson Welles done a documentary biography about a fake artist. His film was fake. genius. And that's right, Omar. It's all about art fakery. Brilliant. Ties the viewer up in knots, of course. Happy House. That's why nobody has a clue what he's saying. So yeah, uh, F for fake. The film is called. The one Budge is talking about. It's called F for fake. I've got that somewhere in my collection as well. So yeah, he was quite an artist. So there we go, folks. And I'm going to draw the curtains on this because it's getting close to 11. And I think we've exhausted this subject between the three of us. Unless you've got something else to add, Samuel.
Yeah, it was different. It wasn't personally what I was looking for, but it was certainly different. And if you have a passing interest in him, it's probably worth a watch, um, because there's a reasonable amount of good content in it. Uh, and he's definitely one of those people that you definitely wish you could have met, had a conversation about anything at all. Anything at all. You could read the phone book and you'd be enthralled. Um, just one of those people. Um, and apparently he was always a guest at Vivian Lee's dinner parties, always uh, welcomed within those circles, because he was just such a highly entertaining uh, guy with all the stories, which probably leans into the fact that, as you mentioned earlier, that he was a bit of a fibber. He would tell a tall tale, but
Oh yeah,
he he delivered it in such a fine fashion with that fantastic oration that he had. That even if you knew that he was telling a load of porkies, it sounded good, and he would keep you entertained.
absolutely. Ultra nationalists, good evening, sir. Joined late. Mrs. Smokestar dogged. She's off to bed early. What's been the topic tonight? We have been discussing a documentary that my son picked titled The Eyes of Orson Welles. So we have been squeezing the life out of this documentary. And for some reason, we haven't had Eki with us tonight. Sensum is with his daughter and son-in-law having a family uh, get together. And I'm just getting ready to pack up the stream.
Yeah.
Most people have dribbled away over the 2 hours.
Do you know who's picking next? I know it's perhaps a moot point at this
Not at
stage.
this point, I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
I can't remember who comes after Samuel. Certainly not me.
Yeah. Yeah, before me it was Eki.
Yeah, I think it might be me, but since he
Yeah,
would let us know probably.
yeah,
Because he keeps the records.
yeah.
But you said, actually, it's the tip of the iceberg. Well, I could talk for hours on the subject of Orson Welles, but as Samuel said, if it's a person you're not particularly interested in for whatever reason, then it's not a topic that you really want to sit and listen to for a couple of hours. That's the way I would see it. Oh, there's Robert. Well, not everybody does, Robert, and that's not a crime either. So some people are quite happy and content to listen to other people blather on about books and films and such like. Took me a long, long time to realise that not everyone wants to speak. I used to think everybody wanted to speak. But it's not true. I found that out a long time ago. That's why I don't press people now. Some people think that I can speak too much for other folk. And maybe they're right. So yeah, I think what we will do is, I think, despite the fact that our friend and comrade Ulster nationalist is just joining us, I think, folks, I will bring on the uh, the music. I don't know who else has enjoyed it, but I have certainly enjoyed it.
Yep, been a
Yeah,
pleasure.
always good. Yeah, always good to talk about films. Maybe a quick plug for William before we disappear.
Oh yeah, give us a quick plug about the channel and all the other stuff, William. And congratulations again on getting through the course. That's really good. I'm pleased for you.
Cheers, John. Yeah, it was a it was a bit of a task. It was a big jump up in terms of the workload. I think in overall I completed 28 different assessments. So it was it was a bit daunting, but we got there in the end. But
Yeah, of
yeah,
course.
I'll probably be live on Sunday night. I think with Sensum and Toffee and DJ, so people can catch us there. And I think for me personally, it'll be Monday. But don't hold me to it. It's all a bit up in the air at the moment, but it's been great to be on and speak to yourself and Samuel again. Hopefully, Eke's not been arrested, but I'm
Oh,
sure we'll hear. I'm sure we'll hear from him at some point. But
yeah,
thanks again.
no problem, my friend. You take care. Tell Sensum I was asking for him. Would you speak to him? Happy House is, it's probably a truism here. It's saying in Scotland, everyone wants to speak. I think that's true. So anyway, anything last minute words from yourself, Samuel?
Uh, as a wise man would have said tonight, don't forget to floss. Thanks, everyone, and spoke me a kipper. I'll be back for breakfast.
A comment here from D. Martin. I was amazed at the passing mention Orson received in the American media on his death. I guess he was out of favour with the Hollywood establishment, for the younger generation had begun to forget. That's true. It had. Uh, I think his films, though, some of them anyway, will continue to shine. Happy House is saying another truism, which I do believe: the Scots are the best storytellers. A lot of that went on around me when I was growing up. I know that much. Anyway, I'll take William out of the live stream too. And out he comes. So, folks, thank you all for being here. I'm sorry that we couldn't have Sensum at Ecky's company, but that's the way things go. And hopefully I'll see you all again on Tuesday night. And thanks, all of you, for being here. And it would be a big help to me if you sub to the channel, D. Martin, liked as well. And I'll say, as always, adios, au revoir, cheerio. And until Tuesday, goodbye for now. Enjoy the music.
Silently the snow falls, paints a winter scene, swiftly spreads the dark rim, hides the fading autumn green. Moonbeams brush the dark wood, conjure friendships dear to me. Lightly now the breeze flows, disturbing more than just the leaves. But life's much more than we can know. We are one small glow in the eternal flow. Patiently the love grows, lifts the weary heart. Gently now she holds me, melts two worlds once apart. Moonbeams brush the dark wood, usher dreams of you and me. Softly then the breeze blows, disturbing more than just the trees. But love's much more than we can know. We are one small glow in the eternal flow. Melodies of long ago, songs of innocence, harmonies to soothe the soul, has some consequence. Moonbeams brush the dark wood, awakening joys of you and me. Silently the snow falls, bringing winter symphony. but we're much more
So much more
than we can know.
than ever possibly
We are one small globe
what an important flow
in the eternal flow. But life's much more can know. We are one small globe in the eternal flow.
So you take care, folks. Look after yourself. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And thank you again for being here. And hopefully, I'll see you all again on Tuesday, same time, 9 o'clock. Bye just now. Bye, Treble M. Enjoy your weekend. Adios.